Hey friends, it's Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rachel Terry. I am the author of 2 young adult fantasy novels. Information will be in the description box down below if you're interested. Today I will be reviewing Unnatural Ends by Christopher Huang. This is a historical mystery that takes place in 1920s England and follows 3 main characters, Alan, Roger, and Caroline, as they are all called home following the announcement of the death of their father, Sir Lawrence Linwood. Now, Sir Lawrence wasn't their biological father, he was their adoptive father. So they're all from different ethnicities and backgrounds, and they don't really know who their real birth parents were, but Sir Lawrence, out of the goodness of his heart, took them in and raised them, and now they have received word that he died suddenly. So they all return home to the Linwood mansion to mourn and have the funeral, only to be informed that Sir Lawrence's death was not natural, he was murdered, and his will stipulates that whomever can solve his murder gets to inherit the property. This is odd to the main characters because Sir Lawrence took each of them aside in the past and promised them that he was going to leave the mansion, Linwood Hall, to them specifically, and that contradicts what he told the others. So this is very confusing. And at first the characters aren't exactly sure that they want to get involved because they each have their own lives. Alan is an archaeologist, Caroline is working as an actress under the pretense that she's working for a newspaper, and Roger is an engineer, and he brings his girlfriend Iris along with him to the house, so she gets involved with all of this as well. They each have their own lives, they don't really want to get involved in a murder investigation, and they're not really too concerned about who gets to inherit the house. However, as things go on and more people end up dead, it becomes very clear that something is not right here. There's a killer on the loose, these murders are not yet over, and there are secrets that surround these main characters' birth families, secrets that may have something to do with why these murders are happening now. This is a very complex book. I did not figure it out. I kind of figured out what was going on at the same time as the characters, which is what I love to see in mysteries, because it's done in a way that I'm smart enough I can figure out part of it, but it's also surprising because I didn't get all of it right, and so it's doubly satisfying in that I got part of the puzzle right, but I was also pleasantly surprised. So it's very complicated, it's very complex, there's lots of moving parts, it's a very compelling mystery, it keeps you turning the pages because you want to know what exactly is going on here and how does this end. The characters are all really intriguing and developed and well done, and honestly I was just enjoying spending time with the characters as I was reading this book. I enjoyed the characters and their lives just as much as I enjoyed the puzzle, so that was a big win for me. It's also a very atmospheric book. There's a lot of detail given as to the house and what it looks like, as well as the town and the villagers, and then of course you get characters from the village and their perspectives on things and the impact that Sir Lawrence had on their lives and all of this stuff. So it's just really good and really twisty and complex, and I'm just so glad that I read it. And it's really hard to talk about this book because of how complex it was and everything that happens, and it's hard for me to not give out spoilers, so that's all I can really say without delving into the spoilers. Everything was just great. I really appreciated the characterization, and the mystery was satisfying. It was a bit abrupt, I think, at the end with the way everything wrapped up, but ultimately that was satisfying as well. So let's get into spoilers now, because I can't say anything else without doing so. So if you want to read this book, please do not spoil it for yourself. You will not get nearly the same amount of enjoyment if you do. So, spoilers. It becomes very clear early on that Sir Lawrence was a terrible person, and I remember sitting there reading the book thinking whoever murdered him actually did everybody a favor because he was such a jerk, he deserved this. And because he was such a jerk, you have a myriad of suspects to choose from. It's an interesting thing because it's not every mystery where you have a victim who is so unlikable. If you have a victim who is likable, then you want to find the killer to get justice for this person because they didn't deserve what happened to them, just as much as you want to find the killer in order to solve the puzzle. In a case like this where you have an unlikable victim, you don't really want the killer to be caught, to be brought to justice, because Sir Lawrence was so unlikable, it's basically like justice has been served by him being murdered. So you really keep reading because you want to find the solution to the puzzle, you want to discover if you're right. And of course, in this case, you also had the benefit of these well-developed characters that you were invested in and you wanted to keep reading for them. So that was really interesting. Sir Lawrence is a terrible person. He basically beat out things like empathy and compassion and mercy. He did not want those qualities in his children because he viewed them as weaknesses. So they were not allowed to help each other. They were not allowed to show sympathy. One example that Caroline remembers is she found a cat outside that was missing a paw, and she took it inside and was caring for it, only when her father found it, she could no longer do that because the cat would not be able to survive without her help, therefore it's mercy and it's wrong. And he made her drown the cat in the river, which just that right there would make me hate Sir Lawrence if I didn't already, based on the other things we'd seen him do and the way he treated his adoptive children. But then Caroline thinks to herself, what are the odds that this disabled cat would just pop up right where I could find it? And it's no accident. And none of this is an accident, actually. Sir Lawrence is also a terrible person because he's a eugenicist. He did not actually adopt these children. You find out that they are all his biological children, but their mother that they call mother is their adoptive mother. Their real birth mothers they don't know. And they came into Sir Lawrence's life through various means, and he basically wanted to have these children as nothing more than an experiment because he raised them to eschew certain values that are positive, like empathy and compassion, and he ultimately wanted them to compete with each other. And that's what I mean about none of this is an accident. This whole thing is planned. There is a rule in mysteries where if you don't have a body, or you have a body that cannot be identified because it's so badly mangled, there's always a possibility that it's not actually the person that you and the characters are led to believe that it is. And that's exactly what happens here. Sir Lawrence is not dead. He faked his own death. The body that was found was bashed with a mace, so you couldn't identify it, and because everybody was told that it was Sir Lawrence, that's what they believed, and they had no way to disprove that. So he's not actually dead. He faked his own death and then set his 3 children up, pitting them against each other so that the survival of the fittest thing can happen. Whoever is the most ruthless is the one he wants to inherit his estate. So he wants them to compete against each other and frame each other or kill one of them. So ideally, I guess one of them would be framed for the murder and then go to prison, and then the other one could just be killed and bumped off somehow. And the one who orchestrated all of that would be the last child standing, who would then inherit everything because they're basically Sir Lawrence's heir. They're a person after his own horrible heart. So the characters do find this out, and when they find that out, Sir Lawrence's plan goes awry, and he comes out of the woodwork, he reveals himself, and the ending is pretty abrupt, and I'm still not exactly sure who is responsible for the way the book ended. I'm not gonna go into that, but I did think ultimately it was satisfying because Sir Lawrence does end up dead at the end. I'm not exactly sure how that came about, like who's responsible for that, but he is dead, thankfully. And the characters, they get to do their own thing now. They get to live their lives the way they wanted, and they don't have to worry about the shadow of their father looming over them forever. Because even when they believed that he was dead, he still sort of hung over them, and they thought about how he would be viewing their impending investigation, all this stuff, and it was never anything positive. It was always negative. And that's one of the reasons why Caroline worked as an actress under the guise of working for a newspaper, because she knew her father would in no way approve of her working as an actress, so she used the excuse that she was working for a newspaper, which journalism, I guess, was acceptable to Sir Lawrence. But he's just a really bad person, and yeah, it was really twisty, and I'm just thrilled to have read it, and I'm happy with the way the investigation unfolded. It's very complicated. It's hard to figure out. Just when you think you might have figured out what's going on, you don't. I loved it. It earned a place on my shelf, which if you've been on my channel before, you know that's one of the highest recommendations I can give a book. I will be rereading it again just because this is one of those things where I feel like when I reread it, I will definitely learn something that I missed before somehow. So I very much recommend it if you're into mystery, and even if you're not and you want to get into it, I think this would be a great book for it. And yeah, I just really loved it and I recommend it. So there you have it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. I appreciate each and every one of you. My name is Rachel Terry. I am the author of 2 young adult fantasy books, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!